Hi, this is Warisa Zainab, and this is So Meta.
So Meta.
Hi, I'm Luca. I'm your host here at So Meta. I'm also a personal coach and hypnotherapist at LucaMindCoach.com. Warisa is a remarkable speaker who embodies the essence of resilience and purpose. With an impressive background in Islamic Studies, a Master of Science in Child, Adolescent, and Family Mental Health, and a Master's in Clinical Psychology, Warisa is a Narcissistic Abuse Recovery Coach, an NLP Practitioner, and a Clinical Hypnotherapist. She is also a very dynamic talk show host and a very gifted poet. Welcome to the show, Warisa.
Absolutely an honor to be here, Luca.
You and I have been friends for quite a while. We basically were doing a study group together where we were studying neuro-linguistic programming, and that's how we met years ago.
COVID time.
You were an absolutely multi-talented person. I didn't even know how you used to do most of the things you did. Now I know you, and I know you have incredible talents in so many ways. You used to host is it a talk show or TV show?
Yes, it was a talk show on
Skype?
TV. That's right. Yeah, on mental health.
Yeah, that's so scary. But you were really good, and I think in some way you really inspired me to actually start my podcast as well, because I saw how many people you've touched with your show, and I thought, it would be really good to do something similar as well. So I'm really glad you're here today with me, and I'm glad that you're there to inspire me all the time.
That's too kind, Luca. I think we both inspire each other, and we've been on a similar journey as well through our, learning and healing and all the work that we've done on ourselves. So I think that's an inspiration, not just for us, but a lot of people who will get to know more as we talk.
Yeah. So tell me about your studies. You have a double master degree. Tell me about that.
Well,
how did you decide to study psychology?
Long story short, my mother wanted me to be a medical doctor, which is a quite common, goal in the Asian community, especially the Indian community. Everybody, inspires to be either a doctor or an engineer. And since I was a child, I've never been interested in medicine or engineering or all of those things. I was a curious child, and I've always been like, how does this work? And why does the human being think like that? And I was always fascinated by the human mind and the way things work, the way we think, feel, behave. I found that really interesting. I wanted to be an archaeologist. But then I know I love history, and I was told, oh no, you can't be digging people's graves, for a living. You can't do that. There's no potential. And, in the Indian subcontinent, you don't come across a lot of people who are in this field. So I was like, okay, I love animals. Let me become an animal doctor. And again, he was like, come on, you can't be helping cows give birth all the time. There's more to life. I was like, oh gosh, what else can I be? And then I was like I said, I was inspired by the way humans function, as in mentally. So I was like, okay, let's pursue psychology. It's one of my favorite subjects. And that's how the journey started. So I did my master's in clinical psychology, and I loved it, especially, abnormal psychology, the psychopathy, and how a human being can be so different in different situations, and how certain life events like trauma and certain life incidents, adverse childhood experiences can totally shape your personality in a way that you can't even imagine. So while I was doing that, again, like I said, I've always been one of those curious people, and I love to read. And after a few years, I slowly and gradually kind of transitioned into mental health from clinical psychology, specifically in like child and youth and family, because, I strongly believe that a child's life impacts his adulthood later on. So if your childhood is a healthy one and you grow up in a, healthy environment, it will impact your entire life. Whereas if you grow up in a dysfunctional family home, it will mess things for you in future.
Hi, this is Luca from So Meta. I want to talk to you about the paid partner of this episode, BetterHelp. I've been in therapy for most of my life, since I was a child really. The benefits of therapy are so profound and really help us live better lives. That's why I chose to become a therapist myself, to help others. But therapists also go to therapy, and when I need to talk things through with a professional, I choose BetterHelp. When my mom had cancer, I needed to talk to someone to unravel my thoughts, my worries. I was traveling a lot and I spent a lot of my time commuting, or I spent it with her, looking after her, supporting her. That meant I was away from my home, from my friends, from my routine. My life was on hold and I didn't have a support system for myself. That's why BetterHelp was the best choice for me at that time. All I needed was my phone or my laptop and access to the internet. I didn't need to travel to someone's office. I didn't have to scroll through endless directories, and I didn't have to break the bank either. After a short questionnaire, BetterHelp matched me with a credentialed therapist based on my preferences within 48 hours. Which is usually how long it takes to get matched. But if for whatever reason you want to change therapist, you can do so with a click. It's that easy. I love that I could book and manage my appointments based on my schedule. And I could even access group therapy sessions that are organized by topic. BetterHelp made it easier for me to look after myself when I was looking after my mom. If you need support, let BetterHelp connect you to a therapist. Visit betterhelp.com/SoMeta or use the code SoMeta and enjoy a special discount. And now back to the show.
So I did my another master's in child and adolescent and family mental health. And then after, few years, or I can say decade actually, when COVID started, it was something I think each one of us experienced for the first time in our lives. I mean, I've never had another, pandemic before. And lots of things started to happen. And I've always been, like for the past decade, I've been quite interested in certain issues which are quite prevalent, even in the West, which is abuse, domestic abuse. And I realized during COVID, Luca, the amount of people who started to call me for referrals or for requesting like a talk or a seminar or a workshop or training, specifically in domestic abuse, I was like, what's going on?
Right.
And the more I started to learn and read, I realized that now that people are confined to their homes with no outlet, there has been like a sudden increase in rates of abuse and violence at home. And if I be honest with you, I was really heartbroken because no one deserves that. And I spoke to a lot of clients who were in distress. They were like, we don't know what to do. We don't know how to go out and seek help. We're like stuck with the perpetrator at home. And I was like, what can I do to help them? So I've been like, volunteering and working in this field for quite a long time. So I was like, okay, what is it that I can do while I'm sitting at home? Someone invited me as a guest speaker, just like you have today. And it was like a TV channel that I later did my talk shows on. And I was invited on a morning show and they were like, okay, you're from the mental health field. What are your thoughts about the pandemic? How is it affecting and impacting people's lives? And then that's how the conversation started, Luca. I just started talking about the underlying issues that are happening that nobody's talking about. Everybody's like obsessing over COVID and how people are dying as a result, but nobody's talking about what's happening behind closed doors. While people are trying to protect themselves from COVID, there is something they cannot protect themselves from. And that is being with someone who's an abuser, who's the perpetrator, who could be your spouse, your parent. So I talk.
It must be horrible to have no way to escape that because we were in lockdown. So these people were literally imprisoned in their homes with their perpetrators.
Absolutely.
So it must have been really scary for a lot of people.
A lot of people, they ended up with divorce. A lot of people, they had to call the police because there were incidents of violence. So I spoke about this for like an hour and I talked about different types of abuse and how it impacts you, how you can recognize the signs and symptoms, and then a little bit about signposting. If you are in a situation like this, and like you said, in prison with the perpetrator, what can you do to seek help? And a lot of people appreciated that show, that morning show, that episode. And I thought to myself, what if I, talk about it on media? And then luckily I was offered to do my own talk show because I got such amazing feedback from people. So the director was like, we are giving you a platform. You talk. Yeah. I know you're passionate about this. You love to kind of educate people and share what you have learned. Now, I've never done this before in my life, right? I've never been like a talk show host. I was like, what if I make mistakes? What if I, especially when we are live, Luca, the chances of making mistakes, oh my goodness.
This is recorded and it's so
I know, right? So, I didn't have the best of equipment, just my laptop, and that's it. I didn't even have a fancy podcast mic and, all of those things. And I started with absolutely zero experience, being absolutely clueless. But I was like, let's talk. That's all I wanted to do. Talk about issues nobody else wants to talk about for various reasons, because mental health is a taboo in our community, right? Mental disorders, people don't want to talk about. If somebody is suffering, they would rather suffer in silence than tell people that I have this condition or this problem or these challenges that I'm going through. There's so many stigmas associated with, mental health, and even domestic abuse, like a huge one, Luca. I had the shock of my life. The more research I did, the more shocking it got. 1 out of every 3 females in the UK and 1 out of every 4 to 5 men in the UK experience some form of domestic abuse in their life. That hit me hard. And the fact that 2 women die every week in England by the hands of their partners.
Wow.
I was just like, oh my goodness. And this is across all ethnicities, all genders, all, religion. So it's not like specific to just one culture, because I thought maybe it just happened with the Asian community, Yeah. But when I started to kind of work more and more in this field, I realized, oh my goodness, this is across all social classes, the rich and the poor and the middle class. It's everywhere. The only thing is people don't talk about it. They don't acknowledge.
Yeah.
And most of us are in denial. So we'll justify the behavior, whether it's an abusive parent, abusive sibling, spouse, whatever it is. We'll just kind of, no, he's not always like that. Or no, she only does it when she's stressed.
So why do you think people don't talk about the abuse, or maybe even the neighbors sometimes don't talk about what they witness from people living nearby or in their communities? So what happens there?
That's
why people don't talk about it?
That's a good question, Luca. Why do people choose to remain silent? And, we could do 10 episodes on this. For men, the reasons are different, slightly. For men, it's more embarrassing to tell someone that, for example, their spouse is physically violent or they're being raped, for example. People find it really difficult to kind of comprehend and believe that, no, you're a man, the stronger sex, how could you, allow that to happen, and all of those things.
Yeah.
And sometimes, in fact, most of the time, it's your own family who doesn't want to believe you or doesn't validate your emotions and feelings, or
they think it's a joke.
Yeah, and that's another thing which is really hurtful. I see so many memes on social media about men being abused. And I really don't see the humor. It doesn't matter what gender you belong to. Abuse is abuse, and it's unacceptable, But yeah, unfortunately, in certain cultures, Luca, I can speak for Asian culture or the Indo-Pak, community, that people are embarrassed if they are experiencing any problems in their relationship, specifically abuse or neglect, because neglect is also a form of abuse. They just want to kind of pretend everything is fine, normal, hunky-dory, and we're in a happy relationship, because it's almost considered like a failure if your relationship is not going as planned, you know. And they want to maintain this image in front of the society that, oh, we're doing well, you know, there's nothing. And then there's another thing that if you tell people what's going on at home, nobody will associate with you, you won't get a good job, your children will not get good marriage proposals. And it's the same, not just with domestic abuse, but even mental health related issues, you know. Instead of seeking professional help, they will be like, or try to resolve it at home within the four walls of the house.
Yeah.
So don't tell people. It's embarrassing. There's nothing to be embarrassed about seeking help. I mean, do you feel embarrassed if you've got like flu or cold and you go to your GP to tell them you're in pain? Why is it suddenly embarrassing when it's psychological pain?
That is the analogy I use all the time when I talk about mental health and why people are afraid to speak about the mental health, but they're not afraid to speak about, you know, breaking the arm or, you know, having a flu or whatever. You know, it's health.
And
Whether it's mental or physical, it's still health. So we should be able to talk about it, really.
Absolutely. And, you know, I'm glad you mentioned that because you know how painful it is to break a bone, for example, or somebody gets a fracture. You would never tell them to just get on with it, you know.
I know.
People need to understand this. Narcissistic abuse specifically, it causes brain injury. And I'm not just saying it. This is what the research states now. Brain injury. It's that serious, Luca. I mean, I get really like emotional when I talk about this. But nobody treats the victim or the survivor of narcissistic abuse the same way you would treat a victim of a road accident or any other
100%.
injury. You really need to change our mindset.
I actually quickly talk about these in my workshop on stress and relaxation, that chronic stress actually causes brain damage. So if you're in an abusive relationship, especially like a narcissistic relationship with a family member or a partner, where you don't have many chances to escape that stressful environment, it means that your stress level is raised for a prolonged period of time, which means that eventually you're going to get not just psychological issues, but also physiological issues and physical issues as a result of, you know, that raised stress level that is constantly on a peak. It's really damaging to the structure of the brain.
And you know, Luca, like we see clients who are struggling with weight loss, right? And we know that when it comes to weight loss, it's not always about unhealthy eating. I've come across clients who live a really healthy lifestyle, you know. They watch what they eat, they watch what they drink, but they can't seem to lose their cortisol belly. When you take their history, right? I know you're going to relate to this. When you take their...
This is going to be good because I know what you're going to say.
Oh, jeez. Gosh.
Go on, please.
You sit with them and you start asking questions, you know, real questions. Not like, what did you have for breakfast? No. What have you been through in life? If you had a magic wand, you know, what would you like to change about your past? And then we open up and we talk about their childhood, for example, or what kind of upbringing they had, what kind of environment they were raised, and what kind of life they're living, you know, work and this and that commitment, these chores and those responsibilities. And you can't be a superwoman, you know, all the time. You're a human being, not a robot, not a machine. Even our mobile phones need to be charged. What stress does to your body and your mind, how often do we talk about it? And that doesn't help in losing weight, for example, because the hormones that are being released in your body as a result of you experiencing stress all the time, it's going to get stored somewhere in your body. If it chooses your belly area, for example. And you're like, oh, my arms are all right, my legs are okay. It's just my belly. I can't seem to lose fat. And then you start working on, you know, stress management and coping strategies and like do meditations and relaxation techniques. And then you see change. Then you see a shift, you know?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people don't realize that stress actually releases a lot of different things in your bloodstream, you know, hormones, but also glucose and
Oh, yeah.
fats. That's because when you're stressed, your body is perceiving that there's some kind of danger, imminent danger around you. So you may have to, run away or fight or be physical in some way. And that's why it releases so many hormones and fat and glucose in your bloodstream. But if you're obviously not using that because you're home and you're just afraid all the time of your partner, but you don't have to physically fight, or if you're in your office and your boss is abusive, but you can't fight your boss physically, that fat and glucose is going to have to end up somewhere.
Absolutely.
And a lot of the time, it goes around your belly, because around the tummy, there are a lot of nerves. And these nerves have to be coated in fat in order to be readily available to send and receive information from the rest of the nervous system. That's why they get coated in fat. And that fat is really difficult to shift. And people don't quite see the difference between, oh, okay, but I'm stressed, so what's got to do with, with my tummy? It has to do a lot with it. And also your heart, and your arteries and stuff.
Yeah. And it's this general belief that, oh, I have to stay away from certain foods in order to be, my ideal body weight. And then they will kind of deprive themselves of their favorite snacks or whatever. As humans, we were not designed, to be living a life of deprivation. We were designed to kind of thrive, and enjoy, whatever is out there, whether it's fruits or vegetables or whatever, The only,
And of course, I mean, if someone eats takeaway 5 times a week, of course, they're going to have to rebalance their diet. But diet and exercise are what society focus on a lot of the time, but it's not the only few elements in that equation.
Yeah. So it's incredible what stress does to you. And another funny thing is that I'm sure you're gonna relate with this. Have you come across people that you can see they are living really stressful lives, but the minute you say, it's stress, they're like, we don't feel stress. I'm not stressed. I've got everything under control.
And they become instantly almost offended, not just defensive, but really offended. Like you said, I don't know, something really horrible about them. Like, oh, you're ugly.
It's almost like an insult. How dare you? I'm not stressed.
I know. It happens all the time, even in my family. I mean, especially.
Yeah.
I think we all can relate to that. I mean, we all know that, those people. Sometimes we are those people.
But it's amazing what denial can do, Denial deprives you of living your best life. Denial stops you from growing and evolving as a person. Denial keeps you constantly in fear. And, it's okay, you are your own biggest enemy kind of a thing. Because once you accept things, as they are, that's where change happens. But acceptance is like the first step. It's difficult. It's painful. It's challenging. It's not easy. Oh my God. No, it's not easy. I'm we know this, right?
It's not easy. It's a constant. It's something you have to work on every day.
Yeah. We all are work in progress, right? It's never about, oh, I'm done.
Yeah. And nobody's perfect. So, it's not about perfection. It's not about having everything under control all of the time. It's difficult for everybody, no matter who we are.
I don't even believe that human beings were created to be perfect. I'm glad you mentioned that, like being, perfectionism. When we see that, I mean, at least I know a few people in my life who want to be perfect, I read something really interesting the other day, that perfectionism is a trauma response. And it's quite directly related to adverse childhood experiences, where you had a parent or a teacher who was overly disciplined and overly strict. And the only time you were rewarded or you were given something that you really wanted is when you did a certain task. So what you become as an adult is a people pleaser, a perfectionist, someone who just is always walking on eggshells and is scared of being their true authentic self, because they feel they won't be accepted. I can say I am not a perfectionist. Okay. Yeah, I do make mistakes, but I see them as experience,
Okay.
And it always, it hasn't been like that always. in the past, I would really be like self-critical and like, why did you do that? And it's almost like, oh, you can never be wrong or you can never make a mistake. But now I'm at a stage in life, Luca, where I'm like, okay, I messed up. I could have done it differently. But hey, I learned something.
And are you so composed when you make those mistakes, or do you have like a time where you're like, oh my God, I made a mistake, and then you remember, okay, no, that's fine. How does it work for you?
Call it a mistake or call it couldn't do it the way it should have been done, for example. Or could have been done better, in a better way. In either case, I mean, if it doesn't have like consequences and impact on others, because that's more of a concern for me, because I don't want to be responsible for doing something or saying something that would hurt people, or at that time I do slightly get upset, but then later on I kind of give myself time to reflect in a positive way, not in a self-critical way, and then say, okay, what can I do in future differently so I don't get the same results? It's like a mental checklist. And I can see the difference, Luca. It's like you're getting better, you're improving, you're growing as an adult. Let's not talk about the inner child right now. But yeah, I mean, it's okay. It's not the end of the world, if it wasn't perfect or the way you were kind of, it's okay. It wasn't deliberate. It wasn't intentional. Happened. There are things that are in your control, and then there will always be things, Luca, that will be beyond.
100%. But still, it's not always that easy to go through that mental checklist. So I'm going to tell you about my struggle with perfectionism. Like you said, perfectionism a lot of the time comes as a coping strategy, as a trauma response. And I grew up in a family with a couple of narcissists, and I was expected to be not just perfect, but above perfection all of the time. I was expected to be the best student in my school. I was expected to be the best child. I was expected to be always composed, always quiet, always very polite. I had to be the best of everything in every situation, and that came with a lot of pressure.
Sounds like an Indian family. Go on.
I knew that wasn't me, because I was never about perfection. I was more about being authentic. Even when I was a child, I was never about blending in. I was never about comparing. I was never about all of that. I was more about being my weird self. And I used to play with insects all of the time. They were my best friends. I used to play with girls all of the time because I didn't like football. So I used to play with dolls with my girlfriends. And I used to have long hair, and people were like, oh, you look like a girl, you have to cut it. So I was more about being myself than compare myself to what I was supposed to be. And I think I still am that way, because I'm obviously quite alternative. And the few times I tried to trade that with the image people wanted me to have, I was really quite unhappy. But because of this constant fight between being authentic and being myself and trying to be perfect and please everybody, it's still quite difficult. Sometimes I realize I make mistakes, and my instinct is to have a short panic. I get a little bit of anxiety, and then I can go through my checklist, and I'm like, okay, you know what? It's not that big of a deal. It's okay. It's fine. You can fix this. But also you can leave it because it's not that bad. And actually now what I do to improve that is I almost make conscious mistakes. So when I make some mistake, I make sure I leave it in whatever I'm doing. If it's a video, if it's social media, if it's something I said, if it's my language. Sometimes I say the wrong word and I'm like, you know what, just leave it. It's fine. Doesn't matter, because it's not that important. And I'm trying not to chase perfectionism, because otherwise it takes you into a spiral and it never ends. But I think actually making conscious mistakes and allowing that mistake to be there and visible and not necessarily justify it, just let it be. First of all, most people won't care. And second, even if they care, it's not going to be a reflection of who you are. So it's totally fine. But I think it takes a lot of practice to take that out of your system.
Yeah.
Even before you can make the mental checklist.
I was actually...
It takes some rehearsal.
Yeah, I was going to ask you actually, Luca, when did you come to this realization that, you know, I'm not being authentic, rather I'm living a life to kind of please others and not offend them by their criteria of perfectionism or what they think is right, and not about what I want or what I like or what I'm comfortable with? When did that hit you? Like,
I think I was about 26, 27. I was working in a shop. I've worked in retail for a while, and I was store manager of a charity shop, and my assistant told me that everything I do is so perfect, and she was surprised that I really liked a box, and this box had wasn't perfect. It had some scratches, and one drawer was missing, so it was replaced with another drawer from another set. So it was quite quirky, and I really loved it. And she's like, "Oh, I'm surprised you like this because it's so imperfect, and everything you like and do is so perfect." I'm like, "No, this is what people want from me. This is not me." But I actually love imperfection, and I love to look for the quirkiness and little things that make someone unique. And then I realized, actually, I think I might have to make more of a conscious effort to eradicate perfection from all I was doing. Because in the end, I got really sick. I prioritized everything else, and my health got really bad, you know, because it had to look perfect on the surface.
wow.
When actually that was not about me. And it was weird that people thought that I'm about perfection, because I'm not about perfection. I'm much more about authenticity and quirkiness, because I appreciate that a lot.
Because that's what they saw and observed on the superficial level, right? This is the Luca that we know, who always does this. So this is what Luca is. But nobody really knows the real Luca inside.
It's so weird when you hear people talking about you and you realize you don't recognize yourself in what they say. And it's like, how many people do actually know me? Because obviously I'm not doing a good job at conveying who I really am, my essence, if they don't actually know me, you know. So,
but the key question here is, how well do you know yourself? Have you met yourself?
I think I do.
Now.
I think now. I think I used to know myself when I was little already. I was always a little bit of an old soul.
Oh my gosh,
I was like a tiny old man in a child's body. I was always quirky, and I never really cared about other people, what other people thought. You know, I was always doing my own things, and I was criticized a lot, but I didn't really care. I started caring later on, when I was more about around 10 maybe, and I started like, you know, I need to change, because, you know, people make me notice that I'm so different all the time, and they don't really want to hang out with me, or they don't really like me. I think in during my adolescence, that shift happened. But then again, in my mid-20s, I decided to put that aside and prioritize myself over what people want from me.
When you are in that state where you're not thinking about your own needs, your own likes, or what makes you comfortable or uncomfortable, because the whole time you're just like living a life for someone else, other people. When you're in that state, I personally feel there is no self-love.
So true.
And you are made to
I
believe.
didn't like myself at that time.
You are made to believe that if you love yourself or give yourself a priority, you are a little selfish person. And we are taught from a very young age, be selfless. Nothing wrong with that. But being selfless...
Put others before yourself. Yeah.
Being selfless does not mean not loving yourself at the same time.
Well, it's true. And I think if you don't love yourself,
Mm.
you can't truly love others. You can develop some obsessions, you can like somebody, but love becomes almost like a mystery, because if you don't love yourself, if you don't treat yourself with love, then it's not it has to be an exchange. If you only love one way, so you love everything external, then it becomes more like a dependency or an obsession. It becomes really unhealthy, because then you're not ready to accept
And you
it.
see that.
Especially you're not ready to accept it for who you really are. You may be able to accept it for the person you're trying to be, like the perfect image, but you know within yourself that that's not you.
And now
So it becomes like a toxic relationship with yourself and your persona, like your image that you put out to the world.
Yeah. And then, you have these concepts of trauma bond, where you feel you're in love. It's not really love. It's an unhealthy attachment, or codependency. Things like these, where you perceive it as love, but it's not really love. Because like you said, if you don't love your own self, you will never be able to love others in its truest form. We perceive it as love, but it could be just merely attachments or dependency or obsessions or what have you. Because you're stemming from a place of need, neediness.
Exactly.
It's not like, oh, okay, I love this person, or, and I accept them for who they are with their imperfections. And if they don't love me back, it's okay, because my love is unconditional. But the minute you're like, oh, if I love and care for this person and this person doesn't love and care for me back, and you get disappointed because you have expectations. You want reciprocation.
Yeah.
But when you truly accept yourself, love yourself for who you are, you really don't care, like who comes into your life or who decides to leave. It's because, I have me and I'm enough, and I don't need to depend on someone else to live my life to its fullest or to be my best potential. I don't have to rely on another human being to reach that level, because I'm enough. And I think you will come across the right people in your life at the right time when you need them most. So you just kind of go with the flow. No, you don't get stuck.
Now tell me, you told me that you're not perfect, and you have this mental checklist that you go through to keep you trying not to strive for perfection. But for who knows you, you are kind of perfect. So tell me about your relationship with perfection, how you perceive it, and how you decided not to be, perfect.
I think I have a trauma bond with perfection.
Welcome to the team.
High five. I don't seek perfection, Luca. I used to.
But what made that change? What made that going,
Lord,
okay, this is not what I'm about?
I can write a book on that. Lots of things.
But you should.
Oh, God. Okay, I paid a heavy price to reach the stage that I am in now. Heavy price. You can even say that I lost everything. When you reach a point in your life, Luca, where you've got nothing more to lose anymore, like material possessions or what have you. You reach that point and you're like, you know what? I've become fearless because I have nothing to lose anymore. Because sometimes you don't take steps, the necessary steps, or you don't come out of your comfort zone because in the back of your mind, you have something that you fear that you will lose as a result. I'll give you an example. How many people choose to stay in abusive relationships because they fear they'll become homeless, they'll lose their children, they'll lose their job, they'll lose their status in society, they'll lose their family, what have you. There's always a fear of losing something that prevents you from taking major steps in your life. I reached a point 12 years ago where I kind of lost everything, right?
Yeah.
Didn't have a job, didn't have a house to live, literally had nothing. Just clothes on my back. So I started from scratch.
Yeah.
You know this, right? I think a lot. And I was like, I'm going through the worst period of my life. How many people do I have right now who are supportive, apart from my immediate family and a couple of friends? Most people are just like superficial. They don't really care if I live or die, or if I'm paying the bills, if I've got roof on my head or clothes on my back, or if I'm hungry or what have you. They don't really care.
Oh, yeah.
So who do I rely on? Myself. Is there anybody who can come and rescue me? Is there anybody who can come and provide me with this? I have a strong faith. And that really helped. I just trusted myself that I can do this. Okay, I've lost everything, but I can get everything back from scratch. So you need to trust the process, work hard, stay focused. No, it wasn't easy.
Yeah.
And again, I met a lot of narcissists in my life, right?
Yeah.
And because I was coming from a place of neediness, people pleasing, and all of those things, I never had self-love. It's always like, think about others' needs before yourself, even if it means compromising on your rest, sleep, whatever. So if I'm hungry, no, first you need to, do this for this person. We can eat later. And then I'm completely ignoring that I'm losing weight and I've got migraines or what have you. So I'm compromising on my health, physical and mental.
Yeah.
Why? Because I believe, unlimited belief, that if I am there for others, always, they will love me, accept me, recognize me, and value me. But if I say no, they won't like me. So I wouldn't say no, even if it means it hurts me. I'm compromising on my needs or what have you. But that point in my life, when I left an abusive relationship, after suffering narcissistic abuse for a few years, and after 6 years, it was like, I've given all that I had, and what did I get in return? Nothing. I think I've done enough. Now I need to do something for myself. What do I have to lose? Nothing. And that's where shifts started to happen. And like I said, I'm not the same person I used to be. Earlier on, I was somebody, you could stab me in the chest and I would apologize to you for blood on your clothes. Yeah? Now it's like I'm establishing boundaries. I've lost a lot of people in my life as a result of that. Because, when you establish boundaries.
You lost the right people.
But earlier on, you didn't think that. You thought, oh, these are the most important people in my life, Oh, I can't imagine life without them. But now it's like, so what difference does it make if I have you or if I don't have you, as long as I have myself and my creator, Yeah, I've changed a lot. But like I said, it wasn't easy. Lots of life events, lots of periods where you could say that.
And you had quite a ride. I mean, you had so many major events in your life that happened. So
I'm lucky. I feel really lucky to be alive. Lots of people don't survive. Lots of people, they kind of fall into severe depression as a result, I'm not saying that I never felt depressed. Totally. No, there were times when I just didn't want to speak to anybody and just sit and cry. And I was kind to myself. If I feel like to cry, I would allow myself to do that.
This podcast is brought to you by LucaMindCoach. As a therapist, I understand that talking therapy isn't everyone's first choice. But I also understand the impact of listening to other people's stories and how these can give us the strength and inspiration to find our own solutions for ourselves. And this is why I started So Meta. And for those of you who want to learn how to manage stress and some relaxation techniques, I created a quick self-paced workshop you can do in your own time. Take advantage of a special 20% discount and really learn how to manage stress for less than $40. Use the code SOMETA20, link in the description box. Would you say that something that helped you getting out of these major life events and depression as well was being kind to yourself and setting maybe some boundaries for yourself? Boundaries
came from self-worth and self-respect. The moment I realized that I deserve respect, I deserve, to be valued and appreciated. And I felt, okay, these people, they are not respecting you. They are just there to kind of use you to your as much of their advantage, and then use, abuse, discard, and repeat. So it was like a cycle, right?
Yeah.
And then you ask yourself, do I really deserve that? You know, the amount of emotional energy I'm investing in someone who is never there for me when I truly need them. And no matter what I do and how much I do, I'm still kind of criticized and humiliated and what have you. Do I really need these people in my life? Cut them off. And that was difficult. It was painful to cut people off completely, like go no contact.
It's so hard.
Oh
isn't it?
my goodness.
It's so hard. Yeah.
Because you feel guilty for allowing them to do things to you that you don't deserve, you know. And that guilt is like a huge thing. It's like a burden you carry. So people say, oh, forgive your perpetrator, forgive the person. I don't believe in that. I really don't believe in that. Because I choose not to forget what they did. But
Okay.
I forgive myself for allowing that. Because at that
Yeah.
time, I didn't understand. I didn't have self-love. And because I didn't have self-love, I didn't have self-worth.
I love that. I love that you said that, because it took me so long to realize that, you know, sometimes what we hear from therapists and, you know, speakers and what have you, it's really cool when they say, oh, you have to forgive everything. You have to forgive everyone. It's the only way to
Move forward.
be free and move forward. And I'm like, okay, that's lovely. And I tried that. I tried that so hard. But when, you know, let's go back to the example of narcissistic relationships. When you lived with a narcissist, you lived with your abuser for so long, and you've gone through so much shit, really. And not just they will never ask you for forgiveness, or they will never appreciate your forgiveness, but they will do it again simply because that's a game for them. I was really struggling to forgive the narcissists in my life, and I was really struggling to you know, move forward and say, how can I move forward if I can't forgive them? And I'm not gonna forgive them because, first of all, they would never ask for forgiveness. They would never acknowledge what they've done. Actually, they will enjoy it. If they had a chance, they would do it all over again. You can't forgive someone that doesn't want that forgiveness, can you?
Also, how many therapists have said that? That you don't forgive.
How many therapists have said to move forward with
Yeah,
forgiveness?
like, like if you forgive your perpetrator, you're doing yourself a favor, not them.
Yeah, there's a lot that say that. And to be honest, I mean, therapists are people. A therapist can study, a therapist can be really good, but a therapist is never always right. And the tools they have, they don't always help or apply to everybody's situation. Every situation is different. So
I mean, there is.
It took me so long to realize that actually I had to forgive myself and not my perpetrator, because I forgave myself because I didn't know any better, and I didn't know that was the cycle. I didn't know they were a narcissist. I didn't see the red flags. And so I forgive myself, and now I can move forward. But I can never forgive them because they don't want that forgiveness. So why should I give it away?
And I don't think it's going to benefit.
Betray myself again.
It's not going to benefit
by
us.
forgiving them.
I really don't see
It's
the
not.
benefit of forgiving. I mean,
There isn't.
also, it depends on the nature of what they've done. I mean, there is somebody who stole my pen, and there is somebody who like abused me that caused brain injury. There's a difference, you know? For example, if you said, oh, Warisa, I'm going to meet you on Saturday at 5 p.m. and you don't show up, that's understandable. Maybe you had an emergency or what have you. And then there is, oh, Luca doing character assassination. Depends on the nature of the injury, you know?
Of course.
And they say, oh, you're going to carry a lot of anger and resentment in your body if you don't forgive your perpetrator. Nah, I'm not carrying any anger in my body. I can tell you that. There is no anger.
I kind of, in a way, remember, I know this may not be helpful for everybody, but I think it helped me in a way. I remember that narcissists, a lot of the time, have become narcissists because they've gone through a lot of trauma, and that was a a coping mechanism for them to exist. Now, it doesn't excuse what they do to people, absolutely, but it helps me find a little bit of compassion and say, you know what, I'm sorry because I know you struggled. I don't deserve any of this shit, but obviously you've been messed up by somebody big time, and I'm just gonna have to move away because there's no fixing here. There's never gonna be any fixing there. But, you know, at least I know that it's not about me. It's about you and your trauma, and that's how you're responding to your trauma. And it's messed up and it's dysfunctional, but it has nothing to do with me. I'm just a name.
This is the irony, Luca, that an empath and a narcissist, they might share the same past life experiences, like adverse childhood experiences. One chooses to be kind and compassionate as a result, and the other one chooses. So all those people out there who say narcissistic people are it's a disorder and they can't help it. Of course they can help themselves. They know exactly what they're doing because they choose to be not kind.
Yeah. I understand that. But at the same time, it's likely that these two paths are developed in childhood. So can you really blame a child for coping in a dysfunctional way? No, I blame the adult for that, for continuing, but I don't blame the child for choosing the path that seemed to be a coping strategy that worked at the time. However, I still agree, you know, a narcissist is a narcissist, and whether they mean it or not, whether they're aware of it or not, I just walk away, you know.
That's the best thing to do.
It.
Unless they are stalkers and they're not gonna, let go of you and peace and what have you.
It becomes really, especially if you establish a relationship or a connection with a narcissist or a psychopath or what have you.
The scary thing is
difficult to break that.
The scary thing is, unfortunately, I mean, these are my observations. Most of these people, right? They are on top positions. In the health sector.
They're some of the most successful people in the world.
In the health sector, in charity sector, oh my goodness. So they have a face for the rest of the world where they are like charming, altruistic and friendly and all of those things. But with their...
Say it loud.
When it comes to intimate partner relationship, they take the mask off.
Yeah.
That's who they are. Within the four walls of their house, they can choose who they want to be. They are aware of what they're doing, because if they were not self-aware, Luca, how is it that for the rest of the world, you are like the most nice, kind person, compassionate and considerate and altruistic, and the list goes on. But suddenly, with that one person in your life, you have none of that.
But that's manipulation. That's how they manipulate people. They don't manipulate just the person they have a relationship with. They manipulate everybody in their life. And the best way to manipulate somebody is to be perfect on every level in front of the world, and then, have one person or behind closed doors be actually the perpetrator. So nobody will believe that. Because
the minute you open your mouth, they're like, oh,
they are the victim.
He's such a nice person. Oh, no, she's so kind. She's so lovely. Yeah.
And what's concerning in a way is that, like you said, some of the most powerful people in the world, they are either a psychopath or a psychotherapist, a psychopath, a sociopath, or a narcissist.
Actually, I've come across a few therapists. Oh my God.
That happens too.
We have them in the field of mental health too.
Actually, quite pretty famous therapists that are narcissists, and which is, I don't know how that works, but it's really interesting.
It's the same as
these people tend to have like very high status jobs, positions, like you say, charity, but also politics, police and law
Faith
enforcement,
leaders.
and
Yeah,
surgeons,
yeah.
doctors, faith
That's a
leaders
big
or
one.
priests or
Yeah. Oh,
whatever.
yeah.
And it seems unbelievable because those are the kind of people that we tend to trust the most. But also, a lot of the time, like you said, they have a mask on.
Well, they
So
thrive
it's
on
quite
trust.
fascinating in a way.
Yeah, they thrive on trust because if people are not going to trust them, how will they control them? You can't have coercive control over somebody who doesn't trust you, believes in you, respects you, and all of those things. Because I can't have any influence on a passerby or any random person who doesn't know me, but I can influence or manipulate somebody who's really close to me, who really believes in me, trusts me, loves me, because I know I can have access to them at all times in a way that I can't have access to others.
I have another question for you, and you can be as vague as you want to be, or you can go into details, and you can base your answer not just on your personal experiences, because I know you went through a lot of very, very deep, life transforming events, but also you can, as a coach and someone that travels to third world countries and support people that have gone through war and
Conflicts,
abuse, and also victim of narcissistic and domestic abuse. In your experience, what do you think in general people benefit from in those moments? What's the best way to help them? What helps them make the change?
That's a brilliant question, Luca. Well, each victim has a unique set of challenges that they have experienced. No two people who have been through something horrific or traumatic in their life would have gone through the same trauma response, because some people are lucky they may have a supportive family unit, a supportive friend, whereas there are some people who don't have anybody, or some people who kind of survive a traumatic life event. They may be able to kind of stand back on their feet and move on. But then there will be people who have been deprived of everything. Their homes, their family members, their job, everything. They've lost everything. And I'm referring to people in war zones and conflict regions, like you said, because I'm also a humanitarian aid worker, apart from the work that I do. I think I feel blessed that I had that exposure to go to places where I know normally people would never go to. And I meet these people, like the refugees or internally displaced people, for example, in countries like the Middle East. And when I meet them, I speak to them. My mind really can't comprehend this. Despite everything they have been through, Luca, they're still resilient. They still have a smile on their face and they show gratitude. People living in developing parts of the world, we've got almost everything, right? All the luxuries. We never go to bed on an empty.
And we don't see it.
How much gratitude do we practice? Let's be honest. And then you have these people, and I'll share a couple of stories if you allow me, because it really touched my heart. I met this lady, right, who had lost her family members. They were like killed in the conflict in some part of Syria. And as a refugee, she came to another, area after losing everything. So this is a person who has lost her home, her family, her job, everything, with just clothes on her back. And they were provided like temporary accommodation, right? So all that you can say hotels have been turned into refuge to accommodate these hundreds and thousands of people who are coming in. So I went to see her. And I sit down, and there's no furniture, right? It's just a room with a cushion on the floor and a rug. That's it, nothing else. And they don't have electricity, so they're using like UPS and, not handmade whatever gadgets to kind of charge their whatever. I sit with her, and she gets up and she makes me coffee. I was not expecting her to serve anything. But the hospitality is like another level. They will give you whatever little they have. And she sat down and she looks at me and she smiled. Ahlan wa sahlan, welcome. And my heart, God, she's lost everything. And
That's
yeah, and
incredible.
she's saying to me, welcome to my abode. Phew. And then I'm like, okay, so where is your husband? And she's like, I don't know if he's alive or dead. It's been 10 years. We never saw the dead body. So we were just issued a death certificate because there was an assumption that he is no longer alive. He was maybe kidnapped, abducted, and then killed by terrorists. And I was like, what about your sons? Oh, all of them were killed. Any other family member? We don't know. We all escaped during the conflict, so we lost our mobile phones and contact and everything. So we don't know who's alive and who's not. And I was like, what gives you hope to move on in life? And she looked at me, and this makes me really emotional, smiled, and this was Damascus fire. She points towards the shrine of Lady Zainab, who's like the granddaughter of the Prophet Muhammad, right? She points towards that shrine. She goes, that lady is known as the Mountain of Patience, because that's the title she had after all the calamities and tests and trials she went through. But she was really steadfast and patient and, resilient and strong and courageous. These are the traits she had. And I was like, wow, even in a time like this, she's looking up to a role model. And she's like, well, we're all going to die. We're all like, nobody's going to live forever. Some die a natural death and some die an unnatural death. And I've accepted that this is life and it's temporary. Wow. Acceptance. See? It's difficult, but it made things easier for her. Acceptance. And she smiled and she was like, I would love to host you again if you ever come back. So there's, that hope that, okay, I've lost everything, but I still have to be kind to those who are coming to see me or meet me. She could have just said to me, I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to talk to anybody. And it was for a short documentary that I made. She could have refused. She had every right to refuse, that I don't want to see anybody. Isn't that what we do when we're going through a difficult period? We just shut off. I don't want to see anybody. We don't answer calls. We block it. And she's still kind of allowing me to come and sit and talk. And I was like, wow. And then it just hit me that, when you get everything in life easily without struggle, we don't value, because we don't value what we don't understand. So what I learned from this lady, resilience, gratitude, regardless of what life throws at you, you still show gratitude. There is still something to be thankful for. Even if everything has been taken away from you, there will still be something that's left, even if it's hope.
That's incredible.
And not to lose hope. Never lose hope. And have faith. Faith in yourself, and if you're like somebody who believes in God, for example, then, or a superpower, or universe, whatever it is. If you're a nice person, if you're kind, you will attract the right people in your life. And if you do good to others, good will come back to you. Sooner or later, it will come back. And whatever it is, just don't lose hope. And I was like, this is beautiful.
This is so powerful. I cannot thank you enough for sharing this story. It's incredible. And I always, I'm a very strong advocate of gratitude and, looking at the bright side, turning things from negative to positive. But this is completely a different level. I mean, this is something that most people will not go through in life. And a story this powerful, I'm sure it can inspire so many others.
And one thing I noticed amongst this population, Luca, that I really want to share with you, they were like, I would rather be oppressed than be the oppressor. And they're really proud, of who they are. They're like, we didn't leave our country. We chose to stay. This is our home. Death is inevitable. It's the only certainty in life. If it's meant to come, it will come. I can't run away from it. But at least it brings me, like these people, they say, it brings us relief that we didn't do any harm. We didn't hurt anybody. We didn't oppress anybody. We are not the unjust. And whatever happened to us, history will always be a witness that we were the oppressed ones.
So in some ways, they find comfort and peace knowing that they didn't do anything wrong, and they stuck to their values. Wow, that's unbelievable. Thank you so much. All right, so let's change pace a little bit. I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and you answer with the first thing that comes to your mind. Ready?
Born ready?
If you could be anything or anyone in the world, what would you be?
A very powerful person who could change history.
Wow, change history. That's powerful. Great. What are you manifesting right now?
Peace.
I love you so much. What's your favorite quote, mantra, or affirmation?
It's a long quote.
I'm here for it.
So this is a quote by this great man called Ali Ibn Talib. So he said, your sickness is from you, but you do not perceive it. And your remedy is within you, but you do not sense it. You presume you are a small entity, but within you is enfolded the entire universe. You are indeed the evident book by whose alphabet the hidden becomes manifest. Therefore, you have no need to look beyond yourself. What you seek is within you. If only you reflect.
That's beautiful. Oh my God, it must be my new favorite. I love this. This is everything I believe in. Thank you so much for sharing. Okay, what are you inspired by?
Lots of things, lots of people, and they have done some incredible work, in the field also, for example, education and charity, and they've established a lot of institutions that provide, for example, free education to underprivileged children, for example, India. And it's not like their life was perfect or they were like rich, but as they say, charity begins from home. They started small, but they always thought big. And whatever they dreamed about, it was not merely a dream. They turned their dreams into goals, achievable goals. I experienced something that I thought I will not survive. This is it. I can't bear the excruciating, unbearable pain, whether physical or psychological. The only thing that gave me the strength to move on was these holy infallibles, I call them, the holy household of, say, for example, the prophet, Life was not easy for them. They had narcissists in their, communities, and they were abused, really, People threw stones at them, and they experienced everything. Still, they did not stop being kind. If you look at their life history, life story, they were kind at all times with everyone, even with their enemies, which I really find difficult to kind of comprehend. But no, you look at these personalities, the holy household, Ahlul Bayt, as they call them. Even when an enemy knocked on their door and asked for something, and the enemy would ask, but I was really horrible to you on that day at that time. Why are you being nice to me? I didn't give you anything to eat or drink when your family was thirsty and hungry, and you're offering me a freshly prepared meal. And they were like, that's because that was your character, temperament, and personality, to be unkind. This is me. This is my authentic self. I'm a kind person.
Wow.
I'm a kind person. And despite everything that I've been through, I still choose to be kind.
That is so wholesome. I mean, it's just...
You always have that choice, Luca. You always do. Wow. You might feel you don't.
Yeah. It's not much about having or not having that choice, because we do. It's just whether we are willing to consider that choice, or if it even crosses our mind. It requires a lot of strength, and it's beautiful. 3 things you can't do without.
Books. I love them. My love for books. I mean, it's my dream to have my own study and library one day. I love traveling. If I don't travel abroad to places that I love, life can get really boring. And I think that's where I get my energy from. When I take these little breaks and I go to these places and I spend some quality time there. And then I come back recharged. I love plants like you, Luca.
Okay.
Yeah. And
I know you do. You love nature.
I love it. I mean, I actually get withdrawal symptoms if I don't go out in nature and spend some time. Like, I have to hug a tree. I have to walk on the grass barefoot.
I know, we had a few conversations. All you want is a cottage in the middle of nowhere in nature. That's all you want, isn't it? And sometimes you come and say, I just want nature. Let's do
Yeah.
something in nature.
I ask everybody.
If you could speak to your child self, what would you say to them today?
You're safe.
When was the last time you cried and why?
Cry every now and then. Something would bring a tear in my eye. Yeah. That's one of the reasons I don't watch news. I can't see children in pain, malnourished, starved, abused, even animals. I will occasionally, like I said, I think a lot. I reflect a lot. There's always something happening in the world that would make me upset, that I wish didn't happen to people or to the world.
It's weird because I'm not a big crier. Like, I should probably cry more. However, when I cry, it's usually for the weirdest things and the most random things. Like, I think last time I cried was a couple of months ago, and it was the series finale of Buffy, the Vampire Slayer. And when the principal dies, or it seems like he dies, I just can't hold myself, and that sets me off. But it's always for the random things, It's when it's something very serious happens in life, I'm like stone cold. I don't have that instinct of crying, but when it's something a little bit like softer and lighter, it just comes up, and it's usually in films. I cried at when I watched A Star Is Born, and I was stopping. I was like, "What the fuck is happening? It's a musical. Get it together."
Yeah, whatever makes you emotional, right?
So, last question: what gives you joy?
People like you, being in company of people I can have.
It.
No. This is so underrated. Oh my God.
You made me
Oh,
blush.
no, look, I'm being serious. Come on. Let's admit how many people you come across in your life that you can actually sit and have meaningful, deep conversations with.
I get it. I know, but I actively look for those people, so I do have few.
See, I wasn't looking.
makes me
I
say
was
that.
not looking for you. You just appeared in my life at the right time, or I should have said perfect time.
I had a sense you were, a really amazing person, and I was right. But I actively seek for those people,
Wow.
and sometimes I love to have a very silly day and a very silly, conversation, and it's okay. It's okay to be
Yeah, of
light.
course.
But when I can have those very deep and meaningful conversation with people, it just makes my day, and it's all I want to do.
Yeah.
It's literally all I want to do. And I think sometimes it's probably the biggest payoff of being a therapist, because you have really, really important conversations with people, and somehow it changes my life in a way that it recharges me. Even if I'm not feeling well that day, after a good conversation, I feel so much better.
And those aha moments when you have with the clients where, say, for example, they have spent 20, 30, or 40 years of their life doing something without really understanding why. And then they suddenly come to a realization, it said something, and suddenly they're like, oh my God. It's like one of my clients, like, she's in a abusive relationship for a very long time. Like, she's got grown-up kids. And she always perceived herself as a weak person. But one day I just said to her, I was like, you do realize that the perpetrator is a weak person, but you perceive him as strong. You are so strong that you perceive yourself as weak. And that for her was like a aha moment.
It's always the case. It's so hard to see when you're in it, though, isn't it? When you're in it, it's so difficult because the way you feel is so real. But actually, it's not what it is. I would like to ask you, since I know you love poetry, and I know you're a poet as well yourself, do you have something that you want to read to us? Whether you wrote it or whether it's something that you simply like, is there something that you would like to share with us?
I wrote this after experiencing a relationship with a narcissist that really, really, I think was the most painful experience of my entire life. So it goes something like this. Once upon a time, a fairy tale began. Extend their thread.
It was very honest. Thank you. Before I let you go, I have we're gonna fish a quote of the day. I got my quotes here. Ready?
Ready. Stop.
Let's see. If you have a dream, don't waste your energies explaining why. That's a quote from Paulo Coelho, which is an author.
Spoiling the dream.
Don't need to explain it. Okay, well, Warisa Zainab, thank you so much for joining me today. It was a honor. It was a pleasure. I'm so grateful that I know you. And thank you for coming on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me, Luca. And like always, I thoroughly enjoy, having conversations with you. Thank you for being there in my life.
Thank you for being you. You're amazing. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
So meta.